bonjour, guten Abend. This is the Caring View. We are live as always. Please do not swear. Before we get started, if you hit that like button, that subscribe button, follow us on our social medias, that would be lovely. You'll never miss out on any of our episodes, and especially last week's episode, which was a pre-record of Mark with the Care Quality Commission, all around digital social care records. Really well received so far, so do go and check that out. And if you're checking that out, why not go and download our CQC inspection guide for the new framework from www.thecaringview.co.uk. Please give us your comments tonight. Let's have a good, fruitful conversation as we go on. I hope you're all not too hot, but without further ado, I want to say good evening and welcome everybody. Mark, hello, how are you?
Yes, not too bad, thank you. Very warm, isn't it? Very warm.
I have got a fan on in this room, and I don't know whether it's sustainable or not, so please shoot me if it isn't. But I'm just too hot. I'm just too hot. Right, let's do a round of introductions so everyone knows who is joining us this evening. I'm going to go around on the screen in a nice, orderly fashion. So, Charlie, can we start with yourself?
Of course. So my name is Charlie Cutler. I'm the General Counsel for HC1, and I'm leading our ESG journey. And I'm very delighted to be here. Nice to meet you all.
Thank you so much for joining us, Charlie. Hannah.
Hello, I'm Hannah. I'm one of the co-founders of Grace Cares. So basically we are saving care equipment from landfill, repurposing it or renewing it and making it available at a third of the price. And then we're a non-for-profit, so we've got hardship grants then to support older people and care workers across the UK. And we also do a lot of local community work as well.
Absolutely fab. And the Caring View are huge supporters of Grace Cares. It's an absolutely brilliant initiative. So if you don't know about it, go and check it out. Bhavna, it's like you live at the Caring View now. How are you this evening?
I am well, thank you. My name is Bhavna Keenrao. I'm the Managing Director of BKR Care Consultancy. My background is Care Quality Commission for 23 odd years, and then set up the consultancy 13 years ago. But I'm here because I'm co-founder with Jonathan Freeman of the Sustainability Alliance that we're trying to really highlight the issues surrounding sustainability and energy and well, that's us.
That's amazing. Honestly, thank you so much for joining us tonight, Bhavna. Jasmine.
Hi everyone, I'm Jasmine Rye. I was a former Associate Director at RCH Care Homes for almost 5 years and one of the co-chairs of the People Plan for Social Care that I worked on alongside Adam. I'm very excited to be here and delighted to meet you all.
Already feels like a lifetime ago, the People Plan. We must catch up. We must. Last but not least, Jonathan.
Hey Adam, hey Mark, hey everyone. So Jonathan Freeman, I am the Group Sustainability Director for CareTech, which I've been doing for the last 2 years, so leading its sustainability and ESG agenda. Separately, I'm CEO of the CareTech Foundation, which set up just over 5 years ago now. And as Bhavna said, co-founder, and I'm chair of the Social Care Sustainability Alliance.
Absolutely brilliant, and always welcome on the show, Jonathan. Thank you for joining us. So, if you've not already guessed, the topic of conversation tonight is sustainability. So, the importance of sustainable practices within social care. We're talking food waste, we're talking general waste, we're talking digital waste, we're talking all sorts. And how can we actually, why is it important that social care now catches up with this green agenda? Health has had this net zero target for a while. Why should social care get involved? How can social care get involved? I've done enough. I'm going to hand over to Mark.
Yes, thank you very much. So I think for me, we always like to take the conversation back to basics. And I think there'll be people out there watching that just think, I don't know where to start. I think there's quite a lot of guides, but they're all really heavy going guides. There's no kind of like easy read, let's pick this up and just kind of implement some changes. So just kind of want to do a round robin on kind of something simple that you can all think of that a care home manager or somebody running a home care business could implement within their service that is sustainable, could lead to being more sustainable. So I'll go around my screen. So Charlie, I'll come to you first. Anything that you've kind of implemented at HC1 that could be shared?
Yeah, I think the key thing that I would share is actually the approach to doing it. And for us, what's really working is listening and working with our colleagues and our residents to find out what actually matters to them because then you can reflect it back in what you're doing so that it actually is successful. If you don't embed it and bring people with you, it'll just become stuff that you do to people rather than with them. So in the same way that we in our own homes will do things like recycling and turn the lights off and look at doing composting, our residents want to do those things in their homes, which we're providing. So the small things like that, I think, make a big difference. And it's just things that you can just jump in and do, rather than, as you say, being quite daunted by this massive array of things that people talk about when they talk about getting to net zero carbon.
Thank you very much. Definitely agree that you need to take the staff on that journey, because like everything, they'll push against it and it just won't work for the service, because it will become something that's negative as opposed to a positive impact. Hannah, what have you seen or heard from care organisations, or any top tip that you've kind of got?
Money, ultimately money talks, doesn't it? So like 88 billion pounds of our pension pots are invested in fossil fuels. So straight away, you could just change where your pension pots are going, because if we move that amount of money out, then people are going to take sustainability seriously. So maybe if you're talking about just refusing suppliers, every single supplier that supplies to you that is desperate to take your money off you, put it back onto them. Can you show me your sustainability plans, please? What are you doing? How are you being sustainable? So that's how you could do it just straight away, without actually having to, but you've started the process. Money.
No, great tip. Something very easy to do as well. But also, if they're not doing anything sustainable, gets them thinking about it as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
Jonathan, over to you.
I completely agree with all of that. I think the first message I would say is, don't get put off by it being such a huge agenda. Just do something. Just start the journey, and small is really cool, and do something that any member of staff can contribute to or get involved with, or indeed those you're looking after can get involved with. We talked just before the show about one of the schools that CareTech operates, and they looked at their food waste, and they got the kids, they got the staff, they got the kitchen staff all around the table, completely redesigned their menu. The kids loved the new menu because they'd be part of it, but they eliminated huge amounts of food waste.
Yeah.
And the managers loved it because they saved £6,000. Yeah. So all of a sudden, this isn't some big, horrible, big thing. It's like, whoa, you're actually going to save us money. The kids like the meal more. They even, with it, despite that saving, they even had a slap-up feast for the Jubilee. So it wasn't like they were cutting corners. It's a really simple thing, and really made people appreciate how easy some of the changes are. I don't want to labour that point, because some of this can be quite tricky, but you can do a lot. Just get started and just do something. And we didn't tell them to do that. They just went and did it themselves.
No, that's really good. And I think you're right there, actually. The money you saved, and Hannah, you kind of touched on it, was that actually you can put that back into your service, whether that's to your frontline staff with the, increase in their hourly rate, or whether that's doing, something and buying something that benefits either the team or the people you're supporting. So reinvesting that saving. Jasmeet.
Yeah, I completely agree with everything that everyone else has said, and just following on that same track of how do you engage everyone and also do something quick and easy. Meat-free Mondays are a quick win. So when you're looking to do any form of change management, you look for your quick wins to build momentum, to build buy-in. Meat-free Mondays are something that will help you reduce costs, like Jonathan said, but you can also make it fun, because you get the residents involved, you get the teams involved. There's vegetarian meals from so many communities and cultures around the world. If you do a different one each week, you're hitting your inclusivity aspect, you're hitting your sustainability aspect. It's something fun, you put it on social media. People in the community who don't know about you will hear about you, and it's just a quick win.
Thank you very much. And last but not least, Bhavna.
Hi. So I agree totally. I think everyone said I agree with the previous person. But honestly, I totally agree. I mean, I think you have to have quick wins to get people on board. So recycling, as you would at home, etc. But one of the other things that we've started doing in some of the care homes we're supporting is having only 1 or 2 Amazon deliveries. We're really trying that, and because everyone has a delivery every day. from Amazon. And it works out to be quite significant. And when you've got a care home with staff getting deliveries, residents getting deliveries, everyone's having a delivery. So if you cut down, that's a really good starting point. And even if you just succeed by 2 or 3 days, that's a starting point. And then you can build on that. But also about deliveries, when can you, I know a colleague who's actually working really hard to make sure that the deliveries are only once a week. So you have deliveries coming in 1 day a week. So you reduce all of the carbon footprints. It's a small thing that you can start off and then build on. And I think that's the way to do it. And I really think we have to demystify the whole thing about ESG and sustainability. Mark is so right. People are terrified of it. The number of people who keep coming and saying, can I have a tick box? It's a checklist that I can do. It's not about that. It's about breaking it up, making it simple. And I think that's the way to do it.
No, absolutely. And I think Adam obviously hid his head in his hands with Amazon. I'm just as bad. I think my wife has something delivered here every other day. But yeah, I think if all of the care services out there actually got their staff to have it delivered to work, I get there would be a bit more of an admin burden of having to answer that door. But actually, the amount of petrol, diesel that would take, the amount of routes it would save for Amazon delivery drivers if they were all coming on that one particular or a couple of days a week.
Yeah.
Adam, any thoughts from you? Saw you unmiked.
Yeah, so I mean, for me, really, we've become a culture of convenience, haven't we? We've gone for things that have become easy to do, and it's absolutely fine. And I think about this sometimes when you look at the McDonald's, and I know they're aiming to become more sustainable and more environmentally friendly, but the cars queuing with their engines on and the fumes going out, and you think to yourself, well, actually, if you'd have just pulled up and gone in store and got the food and then gone back to your car, that's less emissions that are going out. For me, I'm going to speak now on the voice of a social care provider, because once again, I am one, and it's really exciting. And I fear that a lot of it is for especially for providers, this idea that, oh my God, all of these are huge changes. And I do at home, but how many people at home actually wash out the yogurt pots and take the cardboard wrapping off them before they put them in the recycling bin? And it's all those little things. And it's not just about saying to people, we're going to recycle like you recycle at home. It's like, do you recycle at home? Because you should be. And actually educating people of the importance in our own lifestyle, because it's got to become second nature for absolutely everything that we do. And if we don't do it at home, chances are we're probably not going to do it at a care home, because it won't be in our thought process. So for me, there's a lot of education that needs to go on about it. And then in Jazz, I was thinking about the Meat Free Mondays things, because you always get the Piers Morgans, don't you, who go, oh, I love me meat and I need to have me meat. How many people have beans on toast for dinner? Is there meat on beans on toast? And there isn't. There's so many people that will probably eat meat-free options out there that are only kicking up a fuss because actually you're saying it's going to be meat-free. When actually there's so many fab ways that we can eat meat-free. And beans on toast is an example. I don't mean just baked beans on toast. Get your own beans, stew them in a ragu and have them on like salad. You can jazz it up and sexify it for a really tasty dinner. Bake your own bread. Baking your own bread. Simple little things, I think, just to make it more of an enriching experience. So it's less of a laborious task of, I'm trying to save the planet, and more enjoying it.
But Adam, can I just quickly, you get me making some beans and baking my own sourdough tomorrow, but come back on that first point about education. I'm not saying it's not important, because it is, but I would slightly flip that round. Younger generations of people coming onto the jobs market don't want to come in and work for a business where people don't care about that stuff, because they do it. It's just, I'm happy to say I'm of a generation where we've kind of learnt that stuff.
Yeah.
That's not true for young people coming onto the jobs market. And so if social care, I know, it's probably the equivalent of a swear box for when we talk about recruitment and retention crisis on the Care View, but this is part of it. Young people will expect providers to have a social purpose, to be environmentally conscious. And if they've got a choice to make, they will increasingly go to the employers that take this stuff seriously. So actually,
I definitely agree with you, but I also think that and I don't want to make this about class, But I definitely think there is something around the more impoverished parts of this country not having those abilities, the understanding, the knowledge, because it's not provided to them. There's no detriment to them. It's not their fault. But for people who are literally going shopping just so they can put food on a table, green and sustainability is like the last thing on their mind. And it's how do we as a society now change that to support people? I mean, I will go to the supermarkets and it's, I don't know what, £3 for a can of Coke, a chocolate bar and a sandwich. And yet, if I want to buy a pack of apples, something else, and something else, it's going to cost me £7. You know, if I want to buy organic, it's going to cost me even more. Mark and I were just discussing before everyone joined about gluten-free options and how extortionate they are for people. You know, we're outpricing that healthy, sustainable lifestyle to people. And I just don't understand why. Morrison's, and I'm going to name them because they wind me up. I go and they've got this plastic-free agenda. They want to reduce their plastic. Every single self-checkout till, there are the 60p plastic bags. They're more money and they're plastic. The paper bags are in a box under one of the tills and you've got to ask for them. Now, if we're really bothered about saving the planet, why don't we just stop selling plastic bags?
Yeah.
And this is what I don't get. This is where my frustration comes from it, because we have everyone talking about it, but there's no one actually going, well, let's just not sell plastic bags. And because for me, that's a solution.
I think, Adam, it's not just about education in the formal set. It's about, you know, working on it and doing it. Because the minute you start saying to people, let's educate, then people say, oh, it's a nanny state, it's this. It takes away from the really important message. I walk down the road, and whether I'm in Hove or I'm in Leicester or wherever I am, I walk down the road. The number of drivers, you know, you get the Deliveroo's and the Uber Eats, and it's huge. People are running, people are cycling up and down with food for people and stuff. When did we become that society that we can't even be bothered to cook or even go out to the shops to pick something up and bring it back? When did we become that society is the worry I have. And I think until we start looking at that and drilling down, and the education being second nature, I think we kind of like have an uphill struggle, because we're very instant gratification society, I think. And my background is I was born in Africa, lived in India. We were lucky if we had one meal a day. So I still, when I'm in this country, I do struggle with that. I really do. And I'm not saying that we should stop eating or whatever, but it's just this, we have 20 meals a day, and you have coffee, everyone's having a coffee in the morning. Everyone wants a bottle of water. When would we walk from A to B and think, oh my God, I'm dying of thirst, I need a coffee or a water? But we've become that society. And that I think is the change that's needed.
It's the dopamine hit, though, isn't it? It's like the marshmallow. We can think short term and we want a dopamine hit, but we can't think of the acorns. So we can't plan that far in advance. And that's why we're so short. There's a really good book called The Good Ancestor, and it talks about that. And I would recommend that. It's a really interesting. It talks about the marshmallow thinking, which is, you put the marshmallows in front of kids, and then you go, if I come back in 5 minutes and you haven't eaten that, you can get 2 marshmallows, and then they're and slightly impulsive. That's the difference between the marshmallow and the acorn, is I want to eat this now and I am cold and it is winter, but I've got to keep this because if I plant this in spring, then I'll get something better. But we just tend to go for the dopamine marshmallow all of the time. You'd like The Good Ancestor one.
And it's a very good analogy for the social care sector, which, it's a conversation I have with some of my colleagues, which is, I know you're worried about the next salary run or whatever it is, because it's tough out there for social care providers. But if I can just get you to think about things a little bit longer term, if you can really add up the costs, it's still small change so far, but when we changed it and said, okay, if you're lucky enough to get a company car, we're going to stop that and say you can get a salary sacrifice and it's only for electric cars. And I got all sorts of pushback from people about it. Oh, yeah, electric cars are so expensive, etc. I said, okay, just let me work out the whole life costs for you over 3 years of a car. And lo and behold, yes, the electric cars are more expensive up front, but over 3 years, they're cheaper. Yeah, and actually it saves the business money. It saves your, the staff members money. I switched I'm saving money by having an electric.
Yeah, me too.
Mild one. Yeah, it's fantastic. And I've had one incident where I had to wait a little bit longer to get it charged on a long trip. But it's just stopping people going, oh, I'm just looking at here, and just looking a little bit further ahead and saying, yeah, just if you can think on that perspective, then we can work with this. Yeah, none of us got money to throw away in social care, but as long as we can have that slightly longer term perspective, we can make this work for everyone.
There's
called
the carbon literacy project, and their local authorities are funding it at the moment. So I know our local authorities are, and you can get people to train to be carbon literate citizens. And then by the end of it, they make a pledge, and there's kind of group working with other areas. And then if a certain amount of directors do it and pass it, then you can become a carbon literate company. It's cheaper than B Corp, and it's cheaper than kind of the carbon footprint standard and all the rest of it. But it's funded by local authorities at the moment. So if I was a care manager, I would be going to my local authority and the regeneration team going, can I go on this too, please? Yep. But the first day is really sad and you think the planet is on fire. But by day 4, you're like, yes, I can make a change. But just be prepared for day 1, because me and Emma did it and we cried. It was sad. So be prepared for that. But do that.
I think following on from that and going back to something that Adam said about it's not to make it a class issue, but that we are aware of the fact that people who are working in social care or who are sometimes receiving care in social care, they are from lower income backgrounds. And I think a lot of the solutions will be focused on how do you build the community as well as provide the solution and talk about the long-term impact. So where we were talking earlier about, it's very expensive to go buy something from the supermarket, from Deliveroo. There's a company called Olio, which what they're trying to do is reduce food waste and then community waste. It started as a food waste, but it's now moved into community. And the way that they did it is that they said a lot of people don't want to receive things for free. It feels like charity, it feels like a handout. They don't really get to maintain their dignity that way. But if you have it where people who are living in near each other, so neighbours in the local community, someone has, I don't know, like an extra pack of mushrooms that they're not going to use, they just put it up on the app, someone else comes and collects it. You reduce food waste quite significantly, but because everyone is putting something on there at some point or another, it feels more like a community, more like a partnership, more like collaboration. And I think solutions which align with those values are the ones which will end up being I don't want to say the quick wins, but the ones which will have the highest amount of impact. It's about tying in, but social care, one of the great things about social care is that it is a community. There's so much love and care and support in the entire sector, whether you're working in there, whether you're receiving care or support. Let's use those values to build momentum and to build a movement.
I think that's absolutely right.
Sorry, I was going to say, one of the things that I think would be a starting point is the lowering of wastage in care homes. I really think that's a huge issue. But when you've got, and we are working, within the Alliance Sustainability, we are talking to CQC to ensure that there is some joined up thinking. But I'm aware of a case where CQC have gone in and because the care home was saying, we will provide 2 choices and it'll be chosen by the relative residents. They will decide what they want to eat and when they want to eat it, would it be a lunchtime or evening or whatever. And CQC have gone and said, no, you need to provide more choice. Well, actually, no, you don't need to, so long as the residents are happy and you can evidence the choice. So it's about rethinking it and actually reducing the waste. And what waste there is, actually using that to maybe, start a compost heap, get in the garden, start doing that. So you can attract wildlife and And that thinking, I think, is missing as well.
I absolutely agree. And I think there needs to be some pushback to the regulator, but also local authorities, because I had that when I was a care home manager about that we had 2 options for everything, bar pudding. And they were like, where's the other option for pudding? And I was like, in the real world, I don't have a pudding every night after dinner. We don't need to have something every night. Having one evening off isn't going to, kill somebody. But yeah, there definitely needs to be a shift. And I think listening to you there talking about actually, growing your own crops. I think when I managed the care home, there wasn't a vegetable plot, but we had a staff member that was really passionate about gardening. And she was like, do you mind actually if I dig up this corner and I grow some, some runner beans, some tomatoes, bits and pieces? And I think we need to, as managers, give that autonomy to staff to say it's okay, because I think there was a lot of pushback about, oh, she's always in the garden, she's always, she's not with the residents. Well, actually, she's got a couple of the residents with her and she's teaching them how to grow plants. But we've got so many runner beans coming out of our ears that they're now being given to the local village and the community. So actually, it brings the community together, but it's also taught the people that we were looking after new skills that they necessarily wouldn't have had before.
You see, I think that should be an outstanding service, because I think the whole thing about outstanding, good, inadequate, I was involved in the setting up the quality rating. First time round, it didn't work. But I really think those are the things that should be the characteristics for outstanding services. And I think that's the push that we as a core, care providers, and perhaps even, with the Sustainability Alliance, that's what we're looking at. How do we push that? How do we raise the awareness? How do you make it so that it becomes such an attractive thing for owners to actually invest in? And I'm not talking about money, because I don't think it's expensive. I just think it's different thinking. I think, Charlie, you were coming back into this one as well about, the way forward on that. And as a large corporate provider, it's interesting.
Yeah, no, I totally agree with what's been said, and about looking at the food waste and the composting and having that as part of it. Care homes are a core part of a community, not just the residents that they support and the colleagues, but much wider. And you can work then with charities, schools, etc., with the compost or growing the plants, what have you. And one of the things we're doing, which goes back to a point Hannah made at the beginning about working with the supply chain, is using our sort of purchasing power, if you like, to work with a social enterprise which is looking to eradicate period poverty. So we provide period products for our colleagues in our homes, in our support office, and for everything we purchase, that enterprise then does the same to a women's refuge or a similar organisation. Now, I appreciate we have purchasing power that some care home operators listening to this won't have, but it's just being smart about how you use your supply chain, use the money and the purchasing power that you have to make a difference. And then I think that's that ripple effect as well. When we talk about educating, if people are seeing things in their workplace that might be that seem quite easy or quite accessible, it might help people then integrate that into their own lives at home.
You talk about, buying power, but there's no reason why care providers and care associations couldn't come together and say, actually, let's find a supplier that is going to back all of us, and actually as an area we can all use this company and do exactly the same as what you're doing, Jonathan.
Well, there's already examples of that. I mean, Care England have done some fantastic work saying, let's come together and use our combined purchasing power around electricity, and we can switch to renewables. Yeah, and that's a great initiative. We haven't done it for other reasons, but I think that sort of thing is really important. I guess the bit for me, which is the core message, we talked about, the regulator, whether we want to do it or not. This is coming. The new framework has a whole new element that a well-led care provider is aware of, is environmental sustainability. Yeah. I actually wish it was broader. I think you're right, Charlie. Sustainability is much, much broader than just the green agenda. It is about how we're supporting our people. It is about how we're supporting our communities. And I think that stuff is really, really important. But at the end of the day, why I'm so pleased with CQC about adding that is this has to be about how we run our organizations, whether it's a private business, whether it's a charity, it doesn't really matter. It's not an extra tick box, back to Bhavna's point earlier. It's not something that's another burden on us. It's how we deliver great care. Yeah. And if we can get our senior management teams and the sectors get its head around, this is not a bolt on. Yeah. This is core to how we do business. Yeah, I am so pleased that it's taken me 2 years, but we're now making this a central part of our reporting and monitoring systems within our individual services. Yeah, yes, tell us your vacancy rates, all of that sort of stuff, but tell us what you're doing on this sustainability agenda. How are you engaging your community? What actions are you taking? Because it's core to a good business. Yeah.
The other thing I think that I've actually wanted to throw in there was a number of people have said, they feel like people are being patronized. The care managers are being patronized by people coming in and saying, you will do this, you will do. And I think that needs to change as well. We've got to take people on this journey, and it's got to be an inclusive journey rather than exclusive. We know what we're doing. This is how you do it. It's much more. I think, Charlie, you said at the beginning again about taking people on the journey, that your managers need to be involved. Everyone needs to be involved at the core level. So the staff. Oh, Adam. Sorry. Sorry. Anyway, so I think that's really, really important.
Yeah, we give to all of us. We work closely with the NHS. We've got quite a few partnerships with them, and they give us their used care equipment. So this is where our monthly impact reporting started. So we report, because we do so much work with the local community as well and have an impact there. We do quite a lot of sustainable activities then with care homes. So we've been working with the NHS on their green wellbeing project going into local care homes, but we also report on the grants impact, the carbon footprint that we've had, how many items we've saved from landfill, how many have been repurposed, how many have found new homes, what people they've helped. Then we're reporting on the population data of the people that are coming to us and why they're using our equipment prior to then going into NHS. And we will actually stop people going into the NHS social care because they get on earlier, working with us, and the occupational therapists also help us if anyone needs help with the prescribing, even though they're purchasing their own item on their own accord, legally not binding, we can then have a look at the data from that. So we're then helping the care providers, our corporate sponsors, and the NHS, because we're providing a lot of that analytics and community outreach stuff just from working with us, and we're a not-for-profit. So
I wish it was a bit more joined up. I really wish. I know lots of stuff that's going on. The NHS are doing a lot of, significant projects and partnerships. It was really joined up, so social care and healthcare became really integrated properly. That would be lovely.
I mean, they're meant to be. So you have the CSBs. So they're meant to, from the Health and Social Care Act that was passed, I think, last year, they're meant to be responsible for both healthcare and social care becoming greener. But at the moment, all the focus seems to be on healthcare. But going back to a previous point about data, I think social care is obviously a sector which is very good at documenting and evidencing so much information, like already as part of the day-to-day running of a care home, a domiciliary care provider, providing care in the community. You're already evidencing so much information. You already have that data. You just need to publish that data in a way that makes it accessible or in a way that makes it engaging. So one of the anecdotes that really stuck in my mind when we did the people plan consultation and we had the greener care section is when you talk about engaging with your stakeholders, it's not just your residents, it's not just your teams, it's bigger than that. It's also the families of the residents. There was someone who was part of the consultation, and she mentioned how she worked for a local council. So she knew which grants were available, how to apply for them, how to access them. And the care manager that her father was living in didn't have any interest in that. But if you want to find people who are champions, they don't have to be the care home manager who already has a lot on their plate. It doesn't have to be a team member who's already feeling overstretched. It can be wider than that. And again, that will help you bring in buy-in and build momentum.
It could be a resident.
Yeah.
I was just about to say, we talk about care homes as communities and houses and homes for people. And actually, most of the time when we talk about these initiatives, it's again without them, and it's not inclusive of the people who actually live there. And a household approach, I say household with definitive terms because it's a household approach to it in a care home, I think is essential. I apologize, everyone, for George jumping up on my desk and bombing.
No, that was cool.
Adam, you brought joy to lots of people with George arriving. Let me quickly pick up on that point, though. So I'm going to give a shout out to the work that Autumna have done with the Go Green initiative.
Yeah.
And that was absolutely a point. I think Natalie might be watching this, but yeah, our customers, if we want to talk about people in care, customers, which they are one way or another, just as staff, they will want us to be working on this. Yeah. even if we look older generation now, they grew up in a time where there was significant cuts, making men do all of that sort of mentality, so they want it now. But increasingly we're going to see people coming into social care having this as one of the characteristics that they're looking at. If someone has been, if I take my mum, before she went into a care home, she recycled to within an inch of her life. It wasn't anything that didn't, it was remarkable. So why on earth would she want to go and live in a home where stuff was just thrown in a bin? She just wouldn't. That's not how she lived her life. And she was possibly a little extreme, but that's a movement that you'll just see increasingly. So back again, sustainability is just good business.
Yeah. So we've had a comment come through in the the comments. That's where comments go. And it's the feedback from our green initiative is it's hard to know how to prioritize the roadmap to carbon reflection. They've also said it's also been great to see the excellent environmental sustainable practices happening. There's more than I realized. But for all the homes that might be watching this or be thinking, I just don't even know where to start, because you've spoken about a million things now. What's the most important? How did they go about setting out on their greener roadmap? Charlie.
Yeah, so we only really started properly on our roadmap last year, and to do that we again, probably due to our size, we worked with a consultancy to actually baseline where we are, just because we have over 260 homes, so doing it ourselves is quite a big exercise. So we went through and we saw, just on the basis of the data that we have, which isn't perfect, where we are at the moment, and then tried to work out where we want to be. And then what we're doing now is working out how we're going to get there. So I would say to operators listening, we're a big organisation and we are at the very beginning as well. And we're looking at the options and we're trying to get our head around it. So I have complete sympathy for people, with one house, two homes, just thinking, where do I start? But I think the key thing is just to start and just make a list of all the things that we've talked about. Make a list, pick one. If it's just, do you know what, over the next 6 months, I'm going to replace all the light bulbs with LEDs. I'm going to do that. Tick, if you want, and then go through it and do it like that. And we talk about reporting. I mean, that is sort of slightly blowing our minds about how we're going to do the reporting, because the requirements, get more and more for us. But they just have to start. And I would just say to them, it's not alone. I think sometimes we think that it's like a big secret that everybody else knows the answer to. And I'm sat there going, I don't know the answer, but I won't ask because everyone else knows. It's not. The secret is no one knows.
And look, I am going to give a plug here. Charlie, Bhavna, lots of others have all been exactly the same place as we were. We're only a couple of years into this, which is, we're all making it up as we go along. I rather suspect that our colleagues at the CQC might be doing some of the same service, but we're all on a journey. We're all got to start somewhere. We all know things that we can do. I hope that with the Social Care Sustainability Alliance, we can share that learning. This isn't something where we should all be guarding jealously our secret source of ESG, because there isn't. We can all help each other because we'll all win on this stuff and we're all on the foot, just at the start of this journey. Two things I would say is, as you said, Charlie, you start at the start. It's fairly simple. Just do something. It's going to be better than nothing. But quite quickly, can we move to measuring it? What you're talking about there is how can we measure this stuff? And it may not be perfect. It may not be imprecise. But look at your own home, and I know one of the your own way you live, your house, personal house. If you start there and think, okay, my daughters love leaving their radiators on full belt while the window's open. I wonder if that's happening in my care home, or can they just turn a bloody light off when they leave the room, or whatever it is. It's not that difficult. And if you just think about the same thing at home, I will give a plug. We are using the One Planet Living model. which is a fantastic model. I'll put the link in a minute, for individual houses, but individual care homes, individual services, just gives a framework to think across 10 different things and just make it really easy with some hints and tips. So I'll put a link in for that as just one model that people can use.
Thank you very much. Just there, I know we've mentioned the Social Care Sustainability Alliance a few times. Jonathan, you able to talk more about that, whether care providers, managers can get involved, whether there's a website, what that kind of is, just to expand on that knowledge base?
There isn't yet a website. So look, it's really simple. What we want,
First step.
we've got a little intranet for the people. So basically what we wanted, I'll be really honest, I got fed up of going to a number of events where effectively it was people trying to flog me their latest bit of ESG consultancy or kit or package or what have you. Actually, what I wanted was to be able to talk to Charlie and lots of other people and say, how on earth are you doing this? You know, how can we help each other on this? And I'm also very conscious that HC1 CareTech are quite chunky organizations that can employ some people to work on this, can employ some consultants, but that's not the case for the majority of the sector. So the Social Care Sustainability Alliance is about bringing together senior leaders within care organizations, adults, children's, elderly care, specialist care, charities, all of them, but it's the operators. They're driving this agenda, and it's about us coming together and saying, okay, how can we help each other? How can we share the learning? How can we help that journey? I'm not saying we won't involve all of the others around it because they're really important, but centrally it's people like Charlie and Bavna, what have you, actually really driving this agenda with us. The first, if it helps, there's no fees or anything like that.
No.
You can just get in touch with me, and we'll get you involved. Happy to share details afterwards, or just do it on LinkedIn or what have you. The first three things was, what's the business case for this? How do we that care about this persuade our senior teams this is important? So we're working on hopefully a decent document that just says, here's the things you might want to take into account when you're doing it, and here's an example, real examples of what people have done. Bavna's leading a bit of work on just what are the regulations that we need to be aware of if you're a provider, so that you've just got an understanding of that regulatory framework in the legal context, because people are struggling with that. And entirely Charlie's heart, one of the big issues is how on earth do we retrofit? I'm not saying it's easy for people building new care services, but it's really tough when you've got an elderly, large estate of resi properties. CareTech's got 650 odd properties. That's really tough. Hang on, what are the ways we might be able to do that that's not going to just eat money?
The National Trust did it really, really well, and they've got kind of listed buildings. So as a case study, how the National Trust have done it is fab, because they are
good point.
So have a look at that.
So also, it was a group. Sorry, I was just going to add that, as Jonathan said, it's for everyone. Whatever learning we have will be shared. There are no fees, nothing at all. And even, that was one of the things that I really was passionate about, that it would be free for all. And irrespective, we're a consultancy, but it is free for all. And ethically, it's the right thing to do.
Yeah, definitely. And, I'm sat here listening, and it can be incredibly overwhelming. Bhavna, you'll know within quality improvement, just sitting down with someone and going through a quality improvement plan can feel like you're suffocating, because there's so much that needs to be done. But once we do stuff and once we have things in place, that ROI at the end actually repays in dividends, doesn't it? And I'm thinking to myself, even if you're not in that position to go, yes, let's get a green agenda out, maybe that's not your main priority at the moment, and there's no shame in that, because there may be other pressing things that you're going through. if you're changing things within your service to meet one priority, you can always go, actually, whilst we do that, let's just go for the greener option, because then we don't need to do it down the line. So when we're replacing something now, we might not have the agenda, but how can we do it greener? You know, and I'm just thinking to myself things like e-vapes. E-vapes are huge at the moment. They're very, very popular. Batteries, I still don't think people recycle their batteries properly.
Yeah.
And even if at our homes we had an e-vape bin and a battery collection bin, so people could actually just bring them into work. Yeah, another one, you know, Mark and I are trying our hardest at the Caring View to be as sustainable as possible. We did the Care Manager show, and our gift bags were all recyclable. Everything we used had an agenda attached to it. We got watering, water cans instead of bottles, and those cans were then invested back into local communities. And we even gave out Kit Kats, which I know come in a wrapper, but are recyclable now. But the actual effort of going to a supermarket and recycling them can be too much for people. If we had points in our care homes where actually we said to people, bring your crisp bags, bring your Kit Kat wrappers, anything else, your Tetra Packs, all of that, we'll recycle it as a business. So just bring them in on your next shift so you don't have to do it at home. All of that will help, just really small things just to try and get that out there. And it's just things I'm thinking of while we're talking.
It's bringing the community back into your home and home into the community. That's what we're talking about.
100%. Oh, right.
Just touching on that, one thing that that we're doing as a team is the ring pull. I mean, the amount of staff that drink cans of, whatever, the ring pull on a can is one of the only things that can actually be recycled and reused. And there's so many charities that collect the ring pulls, and actually they're so light, you can send so many for actually a fraction. But actually there's, something that you could do as an office is just have, a bucket or whatever. You can all just take your ring pulls off, chuck them in at the end of the month, recycled. Something so small, but actually would have a big impact further down the line. And you might not see the impact, but actually knowing that you're doing something that's, benefiting somewhere, and us long term, has a good feeling about it.
Yeah, there's a company called TerraCycle which do something similar, where basically you sign up to subscription boxes effectively, and you can do it as an organization, you can do it as, like, for example, an individual care home, and all of the things that are quite awkward to recycle, you just put it in that box, they take it away, they sort it for you, they send it to their respective areas that needs it, where they can reuse it, reduce it, recycle it, however it is. It takes the legwork out of your actions. All you have to do is put it in the box, and then they'll collect the box and then take it away. And just going back to an earlier point of how do we get started, I think the easiest and quickest thing to do is speak to your teams, speak to your residents, speak to your relatives, send out surveys and ask them what are the areas that they consider. So this was in answer to the question of how do we prioritize what to do on the roadmap to decarbonisation. Ask them what are the areas that they care the most about. You might end up coming back with 70% all care about, I don't know, solar panels, for example. So focus on that. If it's something else, for example, creating insect or pollinator highways, you can do that and find ways to make your actions that can be done with your wider community. It doesn't have to be just your back office team or just your, for example, your finance team or whoever doing it. Taking the insects and pollinator highways, there are currently communities which are being mapped around the entire country to basically create where the highway needs to be so that insects and pollinators can move from location to location. And even if you're in an urban setting, you don't have a massive garden, or you don't have a garden at all, just having the vertical trellises that go up vertical walls or a window box that can contribute to it. So going back to what everyone else was saying, just do something, start small, and then you can build from there. And the excitement will build, and even people will come up with new ideas and say, I really want to do this, or I've heard of this, can we incorporate this? And it just becomes like a snowball effect where the snowball gets bigger and bigger.
But it's about recording it as well, because if you CQC are going to start looking at it and they're linking it to well-led, they've said that really clearly in a meeting with Jonathan and I. And so record even anything little you're doing, record it as evidence of that thought, how you're going to start working through it. Even if you do, something little like bringing recycling into the care homes or whatever, record that as an action, what you're doing, who's responsible, who's monitoring, how do you evidence it's working or not working. All of those things are really, really critical.
Yeah. Now we've spoken about. I fully agree, absolutely. And you know, if you don't write it down, it doesn't happen. That's the same old adage. You know, you can BS till you're blue in the face and be honest,
Yeah.
unless you've actually written it down. They don't care. They want to see the evidence. We've spoken about a lot of things that are very obvious. So recycling, food waste, energy. What are some of the things? And I'm going to come to Jazz first on this because I was absolutely dumbfounded when I found this out. We're going to a digital world, and everything is being pushed to be digital. We're trying to stop the use of so much paper and pointless printing. I am still shocked that emails contribute to greenhouse gases, and emails sat in your inbox that have not been read or are building up, are sat in a server somewhere, burning up and, you know, contributing to the world. So if everyone's not feeling overwhelmed enough yet, what are some of the things that actually we haven't even thought about or isn't common knowledge that we could be thinking, oh, maybe we need to change that? And have you got tips around, you know, reducing that inbox, and how do we save those emails that we need to whilst consciously thinking about the environment?
Yeah, so first of all, don't delete the ones that you need for your audit evidence. That is obviously a given.
Please.
But all of the unnecessary ones, all of the ones where you've been added to a subscription that you probably actually didn't subscribe to, and you're either unsubscribed, that would be the ideal choice. But if you can't unsubscribe because every now and then they send a nugget of information which is interesting, delete all the ones that you've read and you don't need to do anything with. You don't need to action, you don't need to forward on, etc. There's also a company called Figoya.com. I'll put it in the chat, or I'll ask Admiral Mark to put it in the chat because I can't really access the comments right now. And what they do is they do an audit on your digital footprint. So they'll look at, for example, if you have a website or multiple websites, they look at how you can make your website run smoother. Like, can it be faster? Can it be more engaging? Can you get better results out of it? Like, whatever your call to action is. But also, how can you reduce your digital footprint by, like, you know, I want to say, I think one of their case studies, they said they reduced it by 80%, which is obviously very effective. I'm not going to promise that's for all of them, but that is an area that we don't think about. Like, I think for the last 5 years or so, digitization has been the real buzzword in social care. I think over the next 5 years, it's going to be decarbonisation.
Yeah, fully agree. Is there any other hidden horrors that we might not think about that actually are really, really bad for the environment? I know Dr. Elaine Mead, who does a lot of work with the Institute of Health and Social Care Management, has a lot around microplastics, and actually just putting a microplastic filter on your washing machines in your care homes to collect that debris before it goes out into the water systems, I think is a great idea. We don't think about microplastics enough. We all drink from plastic bottles and just think it's safe, and actually, maybe not. You know, there's loads of little things that I think. Another one that I find really interesting, and I know most of our people who live in our homes aren't going to be going into the oceans, is the use of proper sun creams and the cosmetics that we use to make sure that the chemicals in them aren't going into water systems and damaging wildlife as well. And you know, there's no harm in actually asking our cleaning suppliers, you know, what is the environmental impact of the stuff that you provide us? It's a simple question, isn't it? You know, we always ask our activity coordinators to ask for liability insurances and DBSs for everyone coming into the home, and we want to check things like that. Why don't we just ask, what is your sustainability of your organization and your products?
It's even the cleaning products that you're using, because obviously I haven't had to retrofit anything. So everything setting up Grace Cares, I've been in the fortunate position, but everything has to be thought about from a sustainability point of view, because that's what we're about, right? So we use a lot of steam cleaning, and we're trying to find the best in eco products. Greenpeace have a really good cleaning guide and stuff like that. And it's just even thinking about, where's that going to go? And you're using bleach, and what's that doing? And what's the impacts of that going to be? Dyeing your hair, which I love doing, but thinking about that, and even small things like don't get your nails done, because that, if they're plastic, that's just going to break into microplastics. It doesn't ever break completely down. It's
But there are alternatives.
Sorry, no, go on, Jeff.
I was just going to say there are alternatives. So, for example, if you like painting your nails, there are now nail polishes which are completely plastic free.
Baliem have them. I'm all over them.
Yeah, me too. I'm not going to show my nails because they're a bit chipped right now. But yes. But with cleaning products, you get ones which are microplastic free. And if you're looking for the argument, it's not just about the cost. It's not just about the impact on the planet. It is also the health impacts it has on society. So where studies are now finding that people are finding microplastics in breast milk or in like the afterbirth after someone's given birth, even though they like it's just showing up everywhere in our communities, and it has impacts on things like risk of cancer, risk of other long-term diseases and conditions. And so if you're trying to sway whoever makes the decisions in your organization about it from a cost perspective and it's not working, and from a regulation perspective it's not working, try from the impacts on the health of the residents and the teams. That could be an argument as well.
That's even food, isn't it? Seasonal food, as opposed to it being travelled from a million miles and stuff like that, and washing it with bicarbonate of soda and making sure that all the nasties are definitely off it.
You talk there, Jasmeet, around health, and one of my bugbears is why so many people with a learning disability, have so much fast food when actually they probably don't have capacity to know what that's doing to their bodies. But one thing that I did in the council where I was operating as a registered manager was looking actually how we can reduce that. And actually studies had shown that the paper straws have more microplastics than the old plastic straws. And actually one thing we did was a big lesson around actually, that's fine if all these services are saying about capacity to have McDonald's every day, but actually do they have capacity around what those microplastics are doing to their own body? And probably not. So they were able to use that as leverage actually to start having wider conversations. Jonathan, sorry, I interrupted you.
No, Adam, and the bit of introducing this, talking about the cost of your cloud storage. You can make sure that your storage provider is environmentally sustainable. So you can go out there and shop and just get make sure you only work with someone that uses renewables and what have you. A fascinating little one for you though. If you use Century Gothic font rather than Arial font, it uses 30% less printer ink. Isn't that mad?
Wow.
I was just looking. Can you tell me what Arial Nova is? Because that's what I quite like.
I didn't know that, and I was just like, that is absolutely mad. We can, we always use Arial. I think it comes to default, but actually there are fonts that use less printer ink.
That is incredible.
Yeah.
Bonkers, isn't it?
They just go to show every little action contributes and every little action helps.
Absolutely.
Wow.
Can I just add another hidden one? Is that this isn't so much hidden, it's just an interesting solution, is that some people can't get solar panels put into or on their organisation's facilities because the local council won't give them planning permission because it will impact aesthetics. There are now companies who are building, I think they're based out in Europe somewhere. I'll find the name and I'll put it in the chat. But what they do is they integrate the solar panels into the roof tile, so it looks like a normal roof tile. And so if you are then struggling with having local council say, oh, you can't have planning permission because it's going to damage the aesthetics of the local community, well, you're like, okay, well, here's another solution of you can make things renewable, you can make things better for the environment without impacting aesthetics.
The bonkers bit of that though is, I don't know if when you go around any new building estate, or the planning regs now mean, depending on the size of the unit, they have to have a certain proportion of the roof as solar. And I know this, I had an argument with an architect friend of mine. If you see some of them, they are the smallest number of solar panels on a roof that they can get away with, that makes it almost negligible, the impact of it. And it's so frustrating. And if you actually go and you buying a new build and say, but can I have all of the roof done, they can't make the maths work for them. So you then end up putting it on top of it, which is crazy. But
it's ridiculous.
It's just,
and not to mention how crap these new builds are. I'd love to know the footprint post-purchase of how many people you've had to get back out to fix the stuff that's been done while you've been in there, because it's just incredible some of the stuff you see around these new builds. Right, I can't believe the time, and I want to get one final tip from everyone. So like a sort of final parting thought: if we are social care, What can we do? What can we think about to get ourselves on the greener agenda? If you want to use the same one from the beginning, fine. It's a nice bookend. But I think it's just nice to leave people with some sort of words of inspiration. And I'm going to go with Charlie.
I knew you were going to come to me first, so I don't have time to think of something different. My words of inspiration would be start, talk to your residents, talk to your colleagues, and talk to your suppliers. And because there are people out there that will help you. There might also be people in other sectors. Talk to the people that run the hotel down the road, see what they're doing. Just think widely, think straight, but don't be scared, just start.
Definitely. Hannah.
So it's the just starting, and it's the whole pool of everybody getting residents, family members, whoever's actually slightly interested in it, into a little working group covering these 10 topics. So I've got the list: environmental compliance, waste reduction and recycling, energy conservation, water conservation, sustainable transport, green procurement, community engagement and awareness, continuous improvement, reporting and accountability, resident and staff and family involvement. That's your top 10 kind of little things. Have them on a piece of paper in front of you. See if you can think of one for each. Then 1 month later, and even if you just one more thing and you've reported on it 1 month later, it's just compound effect, isn't it? Think at the end of the year after just doing 12 little things. That's what I would do.
Bhavna.
Just don't be scared. Start at the beginning. One thing, even if it's just tiny little thing, get your staff involved. Find out who's really passionate about it. They need to be the ones leading with the other staff. So get the person that you know in your care home. It could be a member of staff. It could be a resident. Get them involved. Get them started. That's the momentum you need.
Yeah, definitely. Jasmeet.
So I have two, but they're kind of related, so I'm just going to say them both anyway. The first thing is focus on the positives. So with climate, it's so easy to fall into eco-anxiety or to feel stressed about the sheer size of the task ahead of you. But there are podcasts, there are Instagram accounts, there's TikToks where they focus on the positive news. They talk about all of the good things that other people are doing. Talk about the good things that you're doing as well. So whatever your quick wins are, whatever your long-term wins are, promote them, talk about them, and focus on the positives. And the second one, which is also linked to that, is make it fun. So if you're trying to build engagement, do fun things like create competitions. If you have a cycle to work scheme, can you have like one care home versus another care home, or if it's a domiciliary care provider, one team versus another? And if they reach certain milestones, they get certain rewards. For example, the first team to reach, I don't know, like 100 miles that they have cycled to work instead of driving, they get a reward of some sort. So incentivize, make it fun, just have a good time with it.
Definitely. And something you were just saying then, Jazz, I know we want to reduce the use of plastics, and we know how hard plastics can be to recycle. You'll pick something up and it says, this part's not recyclable. One of your competitions is who could make the heaviest plastic brick. Where you fill your bottles up and everything like that, and you can bring them in, send them off, get them recycled, or whatever people do with them. Because then that way you're encouraging people at home to try and cram as much of their plastic that they can't recycle into a bottle. They might not be able to reduce their output, but actually there's a bit of a competition involved, a bit of fun. And actually educating people. I hate to use the word educating now, Bhavna, but supporting people to make those better choices moving forward. I love that, having a competition side of things. Jonathan.
Look, all of the above. Find your allies, and a big bit of what Social Care Sustainability Alliance is, if you can't find your allies in the business, then hopefully you might find some with us.
Yeah, absolutely.
But slightly controversially, also, there will be someone, a decision maker in your organisation, who is very happy driving their big gas guzzling car and throwing away their McDonald's and what have you, who's going to be a decision maker. If you can try and find them and try and find a way that shows to them not how much carbon you've saved or anything like that, but how much money you can save them.
Yes.
That's, I hope, the tipping point. And I don't think any of us are fully there yet, but I think that's the bit that when we go from the small scale to take this to really how the business, that's the person you're going to have to win over, and just start thinking through what's the issue that you can pick with them that you're going to win.
And actually, I would say last bit, sorry, I jumped in. No action is not an option anymore. That really is not an option, especially when you think about regulators and everyone. So you're going to have to get off your backside and do something.
Yeah. Very true.
Can I
And if
add
in
one
doubt,
final?
bribe them with money. Tell them they're going to be richer by doing it. I absolutely love that.
Can I add one final one? It's just to remember to centre the residents or the people who are receiving care and support at the heart of everything that we do. So there's an anecdote, I think I've repeated it multiple times across different formats and mediums, but when we were doing the people plan consultation, one of the anecdotes that came through, which again really stuck in my mind, was how there was a conversation within a care home about switching to LED lighting, sensor lighting, etc. And then for residents who are living with dementia, they still found that very confusing. They actually found it more confusing to have motion sensor lights. So it was about having motion sensor lights, but also then having a manual switch that they could still click on and off. So it's small things, but making sure we keep them a part of everything that we do.
Yeah, definitely. Yes, we've got to think about the ramifications of people who might not have that capacity to understand. I think that's super important. Mark, any top tips from you?
Helps I'm not on mute. I think one thing when I reflect back to the care home, it wasn't a new build property, and actually the simple things that we did was get the maintenance guy to go around and check all the windows for, make sure they all shut properly, check get them all resealed on the windows. There weren't thermostats in every bedroom, so some were freezing cold, some were, boiling hot, but actually thermostating each bedroom so that actually, the people that we were looking after could easily control the temperature, but we weren't then trying to, blast the whole care home to make the other end of the building warm. I think we've run out of time to talk about technology, but I think there's so many advances with, AI and rostering that actually, have a look at the roadmap. And if you're on that digital journey right now, check what they've got in their roadmap for, sustainability, because if you can shorten, the mileage routes of your home care between, one person to another, actually, it's going to help in the long run. And I think something that, we've spoken about is document everything, even some little changes, like you've had all the windows resealed, actually document that, because actually all those small things, when you actually come to the end of, the quarter or the year, they're going to be huge things that you've actually done towards sustainability. Adam, last tip from you before you close out.
So I want to use the very, very wise words of a very famous amphibian. And it's not easy being green. But green's the colour of spring, and green can be cool and friendly like, and green can be like an ocean, or important like a mountain, or tall like a tree. And I think it isn't easy being green, but if we just start having that conversation and realizing that the reason we love living and the reason we love life is how precious and special it is, and why we do what we do in care is to promote the best life outcomes for people. If we do want to think long term and we do want to think to the future, let's just bloody make sure there's a future to think for. And it's just very, very simple. So I'm going to be tweet and finish with that, because all the top tips were taken, and Kermit the Frog said it better than me. But it isn't easy being green, but together we can make a start. So I just want to thank absolutely everyone for joining us this evening. It's been a really, really great conversation. I think, this is something that we can share out for people to start having these conversations, to try and demystify some of the fears around being sustainable and being green. And I hope that in 12, 24 months' time, we're coming back and actually social care is heading towards a net zero future, and we can all be really proud of what we've achieved.
Amen.
Exactly. And Bhavna, Jonathan, I really can't wait to hear more about what your initiative achieves and what you do. Grace Cares, absolutely fantastic. I know there was a comment in the chat about the annoyance that NHS don't take back their frames. Get in touch with Hannah. Hannah's sorted this. Hannah is like
nailed my ride campaign happening that's going live, so don't worry.
Thank you. And HC1 doing amazing work as always. And Jazz, just an absolute powerhouse and advocate for greener care. We just want to thank you all for joining us tonight on The Caring View. www.thecaringview.co.uk. Catch up with all of our podcasts, all of our episodes, download our free resources, And until the next week, good night, God bless, and thank you for joining us. So good night from me.
Good night, everyone. Thank you for joining.
Good night.